Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Homestand Show. It's Albert Vartanian, my co-host James Sharman, and we were planning the parade yesterday. At least I was, right after the Leafs.
Do we have to go the parade route here?
Yeah, I think we do. We do. Ryan O'Reilly comes to the Leafs, scores a hat trick in his third game as a Maple Leaf, and the Leafs beat the Sabres 6-3, in which was one of the most dominant first periods I think I've ever seen from this Toronto Maple Leafs team. But James, before we get into that, there is some breaking news in terms of Toronto Maple Leafs. Jake Muzzin is officially out for the season. The Toronto Maple Leafs have issued a statement on Muzzin's status. They say, after a follow-up consultation this month, various specialists, our medical staff have determined that defenseman Jake Muzzin has been ruled out for the rest of the season and playoffs as he recovers from a cervical spine injury. He signed a 4-year deal, by the way, back in 2020. He's currently on LTIR, signed through next season, but obviously those numbers come off the books. Unfortunate news here for Jake Muzzin.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you worry about the guy's health. He's 34 years of age. He missed half the season last year as well through concussion issues.
Yeah.
You have to, listen, let's not presume too much, but you've got to think that his career's probably done. At this point, it might be the smart thing to do. So from a pure business hockey standpoint, this is a big moment potentially for Carl Dubas, assuming he's GM next year. That's $5.625 million a year off the cap for next year if he's not playing. That's a lot of money for a team that needs to retool in certain areas. So this is almost I know they haven't confirmed next season just yet, and they should wait and do more tests. We understand that, but this is very much one of those cases where it could be a summer-defining announcement on its way.
Right, and they're going to reevaluate his status come training camp. But sooner you have the playoffs coming up, and I think Dubas needs to make a decision on what to do at the back end. We've seen Luke Schenn of the Vancouver Canucks. He sat for trade-related reasons. He's been linked with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm not sure if that's the guy that they're looking for, but they probably have to look for somebody now.
Yeah, but if you go for someone with term as well, then that's when the Muzzin cap hit takes even more importance here for next season, right? Because you can go over the cap in the playoffs, but then once camp starts and the regular season starts next year, you could be in some trouble there. But Luke Schenn's interesting, of course. He's a depth piece. He brings you something different to what they have right now. But there'll be, I think, quite a lot of teams who want a 2-time Stanley Cup champion on their back end come playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's move on to what was some good news. The Buffalo Sabres losing to the Toronto Maple Leafs 6-3. I mean, what an incredible game. Ryan O'Reilly with the hat trick. Think about it, like the past, 72 hours, if not a little bit longer than that. This guy was on a flight from St. Louis to Chicago, played Chicago, or not Chicago, excuse me, Montreal, to play Montreal, played Chicago, and now last night. For him to do what he's doing based on such a short turnaround tells you what type of player this guy is.
Yeah, and you feel that he's re-energized too, right? He's coming off a pretty poor season so far. Had the broken foot, of course. I think 19 points with St. Louis this season. And of course, he's been brought in for the playoffs. But seeing how he's adjusted so quickly to this Leaf lineup, I mean, it must make... listen, we're Leaf fans. We fully admit that. As a Leaf fan, I'm really excited about it. You hear him interviewed after the match, after the game as well. And he's well-spoken. He's embracing, I think, the spotlight a little bit here. And for a guy that's, he's no spring chicken. He's in his early 30s. But if he can just find that energy for a few more weeks, maybe months. I mean, that means all the world, and what a great start. You got Achari scoring a goal, you got O'Reilly now with a 4-point night, a hat trick already. That takes a bit of weight off his shoulders, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And listen, he hasn't even practiced with the team. They haven't had full practice yet. But here he is after yesterday's game on what the last couple of days have been like.
It's been crazy, but I think a lot of adrenaline too. Still a little surreal. Putting on this sweater and being here with this team. It's just, I'm still kind of pinching myself at times, but it's very exciting. And I think it'd be nice to kind of go home, kind of settle in. And I still don't have a full practice with the team yet, which is kind of weird. So it's kind of nice to get a feel for that.
Huge for Ryan O'Reilly to score a hat trick. How about this Ontario line? I don't know what we're going to name it yet, but that's what I keep hearing. Ryan O'Reilly, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, 3 goals, 1 assist for O'Reilly. Marner, 5 assists, the first time that's happened in 26 years. Doug Gilmour the last to do that. John Tavares, a goal and 3 assists on the wing, by the way.
Yeah.
Do you remember the last time you saw a line perform this way?
Oh, man, let me think. I'm trying to think of the Millionaires Row. That was Doug Gilmour, that was Dave Anderchuk, and that was Wendell Clark. Right. I don't think they ever had a 13-point night, mind you. I mean, that was incredible, wasn't it?
13 points.
And seeing, Tavares on the wing, doing the dirty work on the boards, and then you see, of course, O'Reilly owning the center of the ice, and then Mitchell Marner weaving his magic. I mean, it was incredible what he was doing. And 5 assists. This is a guy that's known for his playmaking.
Yeah.
He can score, right? He's got 30 goals to his name in a season before. But he's done it before. I've seen this guy have 5-point nights before, I think 3 times in his career. Back in 2018, I believe it is 6.9,
yes.
4 goals, 2 assists,
Yeah.
right? But when you're a playmaker, what do you think? Do you think the 5 assist night sounds almost better than getting 3 goals and a couple of helpers?
I think, yeah, either way, you're good. Yeah.
Either way, it's incredible, right? What a great night.
You want to be on a line with this
having
guy.
5 assists.
Yeah.
Is I mean, that's what did Daryl Sittler get in a 10-point night? I think it was mainly goals that
The
night.
10-point night, that's history right there. But I don't remember exactly.
Ago, yeah.
I want to say 6 goals, 4 assists, but that could be complete. I'm making that up, by the way.
You heard it right here. 6 goals and
6
4
goals,
assists.
4
yeah.
assists.
I mean, but he's brilliant. He's just dancing, wasn't he?
Oh, producer Sean saying he thinks that's right. What a
Sean's never
show
wrong,
that
right?
is.
So, yeah.
Ryan O'Reilly, by the way, he actually touched on what it's like to play with Mitch Marner. I mean, it's got to be tons of fun playing with such a fantastic playmaker like that.
It's much nicer playing with them than against them, that's for sure. But just, so smart. I think that tonight he had five helpers. You just see the playmaking ability, the vision. Like that first goal, I'm just going to the net. The next thing it's on my tape, and I had the whole wide open net. It's the plays he'd make, and it's so dynamic, so dangerous, and even Johnny too. Like the plays, just they're so connected. They work so hard. They make little plays and set things up. It's a lot of fun playing together.
So good to hear. So Marner got 6 points last February, actually, about a year ago. 4 goals, 2 assists against Detroit. It's back in 2018. He got a 5-point night. A young Mitch Marner, of course, back in those days, right? He was still kind of finding himself. He wasn't a point-a-game player at that point. He had 2 goals, 3 assists in 15 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time. The shot average there was 27 shot attempts for 4 against in those 15 minutes he was on the ice. That may have been his best game ever.
Right.
A younger Mitch Marner, but still, I mean, last night was something pretty special for sure.
He's the perfect complement, I feel, to those 2 guys. Ryan O'Reilly, I think, is a perfect complement to John Tavares, who I think he takes a bit of pressure and a bit of that load off John Tavares as well. I mean, Sheldon Keefe was praising this line, but I'm not sure how long we're going to see Tavares on that left wing. Here's Sheldon Keefe with his thoughts on the Ontario line.
They were just at their best right from the start. But like as we talked about leading into the game, I thought that group was close the other night to a few chances. Obviously, Riley missed a breakaway right at the very end of the game, and that one probably sits with them for a bit. But I thought that line, our team in general, our team game in that first period, that's as dominant as we've been all season long. So it was tremendous to see.
They were great. They were really great.
Yeah, but we see this, though, from this team. Listen, they're on pace for 115 points again, or whatever it is this year. And they show these glimpses of magic, and you're thinking, man, what could be? But they also have that propensity to shut off as well and fall asleep for a game.
Yeah.
Until you see that, I mean, listen, you won't get 13 points for a line on a regular basis. I understand that. But, it wasn't still the complete team performance yesterday. They're up 6-0, or was it 5-0?
Yeah.
And they let Buffalo get back into the game, which was a bit of a concern, yeah.
Yeah, that was a big concern. There was another positive, I think, and it's Noel Acciari. I mean, he the ultimate bottom 6 guy. Yeah. I mean, since he's come to the Leafs back on a Saturday against Montreal up until this Buffalo game, he leads the team in hits. That says a lot.
It's
I know
amazing.
Hitting is not everything.
That line, suddenly, with Aston Reese.
Him and Aston Reese.
And Kerfoot, who's
hitting everything that's on the ice.
Kerfoot's criticised, right? But he's not a 4th liner, I don't think. He's a 3rd liner on most teams.
It
He's
tells you
now
about
playing
the
the
depth
Leafs
of the team,
4th.
right?
Yeah, and they are hitting everything.
Right.
And you look at that upcoming Tampa series and what happened last time out, and how their bottom 6 owned Toronto's bottom 6. And there was no one to go up against the Perrys and the Maroons, right? And now you got a couple of guys at least who will bang. And I think that's so important for this team.
Auston Matthews. I want to say this is another good. Him not having any points, and it sounds kind of crazy, but it tells you about the depth and the quality that this team has, that your best guy doesn't need to be on the score sheet, and you can still go out there and dominate a team, not a bad team, a team that's pushing for a wild card spot.
Yeah, I know what you're saying there.
Right?
I know what you're saying there, that when you don't have to rely on the the 60-odd goal score from last year, it's a good
It's
thing.
not a bad thing.
But at what point do we start asking what is going on with Auston Matthews? He's still going to finish with maybe 40 goals, right? This is still a really, really good
on an
season.
off year, yeah.
On an off year when he's missed a few weeks through injury. And he could still go in a heater. This guy still could score 15 goals in the last 22, 23 games. But what is happening there? Is there an injury lurking beneath the surface there throughout the season.
Yeah.
Is the fact that Mitch Marner's playing on a different line. He's now playing with Nylander, who's a shooter, and has got a great season. In fact, he's the highest scoring player on that team right now. I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm a huge Matthews guy. He's up for a new contract coming up. I mean, maybe a couple of down years wouldn't be the worst thing for Carl Dubas.
Yeah, the quality's still there. I mean, it's a bit strange, though. A little dip in form over the past, 6 games. 3 of those, 0 points. In the last 3 games, just 2 assists, which came against Montreal. I mean, what I mean by it's a good thing is that if he's not having a good night, other players on this team can do that.
He's still the best player on this team. Yeah. Let's not kid ourselves, right? Although Mitch Marner's making a bit of a case at times, isn't he?
He's been fantastic.
And Nylander's been brilliant as well. But I'm just curious about, why a guy that had 60 goals last year, and we were talking before this season about could he hit 70 this year, is going to finish with a paltry 42, 43. I mean, Geez, how many guys would wish to have that, of course, but there's something going on there.
Yeah, maybe he just needs a little more time to get back to 100%. So that's the good. There is some bad, and Connor Timmins is part of the bad. I think the Connor Timmins experiment should be probably left to the regular season only. Didn't have the best of games, gave up a goal with one of his giveaways, but
I think he's rich, right? He's rich. He's got a new contract.
Yes, I think Dubas needs to really upgrade with Muzzin being out and Connor Timmins really not fitting the bill.
You don't think Sandin can step in?
I think he can definitely step in, but you need, I think, a buffer between Connor Timmins and the rest of that lineup.
Yeah, I wonder if Jordy Ben gets many minutes in the playoffs, because he's a playoff type player, right? Mm-hmm. And he's the Leafs 7th or 8th defenseman this season, but playoffs are very different. We saw Justin Holl get benched for the first game of the playoffs last year, don't forget. And he came in there with Muzzin. They played really, really well. Yeah, I think they have to do something defensively, bring someone in. If you can't get an impact guy, you can't go wrong with getting depth.
No.
The Luke Shen type, we discussed him before, but you can't go wrong with that. You can't make a mistake, so we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Yes, and there's one more I want to talk about, Ilya Samsonov, but we'll get to that after the break. Justin Pooney joins us. Welcome back to the Homestand Show. Joining us now is Luke Shen's biggest fan, Justin Pooney, James Sharman, Albert Vartanian. I want to touch on one more thing out of that Buffalo-Toronto Maple Leafs game, the last bad, Ilya Samsonov. Pretty good for 40 minutes, James, but it was the last period. He let in a couple of softies.
Yeah, he's bang average, right? That's what Samsonov is. He's bang average, and that's fine. If you look at his numbers on the season, he's bang average.
Yeah.
And that should be enough for the Leafs to do okay in the playoffs. I know he's going to be facing Vasilevsky, but
he's been pretty good this season, right?
Bang average. Right. That's okay. When they're scoring
pretty good
4 goals a game,
average? Is that
bang average.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's fine, being bang average. I'm bang average.
Yeah, okay.
Most things in life, I'm fine with that.
I think you're a bit better than that.
It depends what you're talking about.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I'm not talking about hockey, obviously.
Depends on certain topics of the day, right?
No, exactly. My concern is here, obviously, this is going to go on and on and on until the trade deadline, but when you go to talk about Dubas and what he should do in priorities, when I see that in the third period, and I know they took their foot off the gas a little bit because they had such a commanding lead, but they let Buffalo back in, and their goaltender didn't really help them that much.
I don't know. Did he have trouble in the toilet again last night too?
Well, that's another thing too, right? Who knows if he's still ill, right?
Yeah.
A couple of days. I mean, have you ever had a stomach bug, a stomach issue? It takes a little while to get back.
I think the biggest thing
it does.
It does, yeah. If the Barker Bulls could talk.
Yeah, you know my story. I told you that. I can't tell that story on air. That took me a week.
A great story, by the way.
It took me a week.
I can't wait to hear it. Okay, you should share it to the whole world.
What I'm saying is, with Matt Murray,
it involves in jean shorts.
Oh, yeah.
That was a bad time. Samsonov, I know how you feel, my friend. With Matt Murray, with his status essentially unknown with this injury, obviously Dubas wanted to go with the tandem this year. It's not going to happen. It doesn't look like. Potentially, maybe going to the playoffs. But I really believe that the Leafs should probably be looking at another netminder.
But what do they have to give up something to get a netminder, right? And they still need to fill out a spot in their back end to replace Jake Muzzin. So what is the priority here? Do they just trust Samsonov being bang average, as James said, to kind of, and the rest of the team stepping in the playoffs when it matters the most to kind of mask over the average goaltending? But again, Tampa, Boston, the rest of the Eastern Conference, they got some pretty big-name money goalies in the playoffs. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer, and I think if you look at the history of the NHL, you need a big-time money goalie to win in the playoffs. And maybe that could be the case as to why the Leafs have not had that playoff success, because they never had that one with a bullet guy in the pipes with them.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying, but their goaltending has never been awful in the playoffs. And I know people criticized Freddie Anderson, right? he was never awful.
No.
He just faced a better goaltender.
Yes.
And the Leafs' big guns didn't really perform when they had to.
And Jack Campbell did too, right?
And Jack Campbell as well. He wasn't horrendous.
No.
But he also facing Vasilevsky,
Exactly.
who's the best goaltender in the league, arguably, right? So, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
You know, and there's 4 or 5 of those guys available in the world, and they're under contract right now.
Yeah.
So you kind of.
Yeah, I just feel like they need to do something. The forward unit is solid. The defense is a couple question marks on the back end, but the real true question mark, I think, is on this goaltending. I mean, you're not going to be too concerned about what, the Ontario line or Mitch Marner or Auston Matthews, what they're going to do in the playoffs. It's can the guy behind them keep them in those games.
And if Murray's out, which is safe in the playoffs, for example, and Samsonov is just bang average and it's not good enough, then Kyle Dubas isn't returning next year.
And it also helps when you have a goalie back there that you have the utmost confidence in, because it allows guys like defensemen to take that risk, maybe take that extra pinch, right, to save a puck, or forwards to press a little bit harder, because you have a guy back there that can make that big time stop if needed to help you guys in big situations.
I think the pinch is what cost Samsonov maybe the win yesterday. Given what
Nice.
happened.
Well, this is why James Charlie's on the show. To bring you that guy.
Raise the bar a little bit
Raise
higher.
the bar. Samsonov, I will say this. He's been good. He's their number one guy, but they might need another guy. Leafs back in action on Friday against the Minnesota Wild. Tonight, only 3 games on the slate. You got the Jets, the Islanders, the Blackhawks and Stars, and the Flames against the Coyotes. Right now, I'm not really leaning towards any of these things. Our producer, Sean, he's big on the Coyotes tonight, which means fade them and go with the Flames. What, you like anything on?
Because producer Sean is the kiss of death.
He's the best of Dylan Muerto.
I'm looking at the Dallas Stars -1.5 against the Chicago Blackhawks. Look, Chicago played last night against Vegas in overtime. That was a goal by Patrick Kane. It was 0.1 seconds left on the board.
Slapper.
That was a goal. So back-to-back nights for a Chicago team that's not very good. I think Dallas takes care of business pretty easy.
Do you think Kane steps up a bit more, considering he's being linked to the Dallas Stars?
He's been playing really well of late, and he's definitely, his trade value is going up, and although it was already at a high price, but it's just increasing every day, and he's looking like a guy who was one of the best players in the league for years.
Yeah, the over in that game is 9-1 the last 10 meetings between two teams. Over-unders at 6. Not a bad number to put
bad at all.
Charms?
No, you're right. Jets Islanders to look at, though, as far as you want to go over and under. I mean, listen, Jets that don't score much this year. They've gone under in 70% of their games so far this season. Islanders under in 50% of their games as well. So
Under?
yeah,
Under
for sure.
Oh, Sean is on the over. There you go. So the under is definitely going to hit. Let's get to some basketball. The Raptors are going to be back in action on Thursday. OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr., and Thad Young all participate in practice. The only player not there, Pascal Siakam. He's given a little bit of an extra time off considering what happened at the All-Star break. He had some time off. Nick Nurse had this to say about the players coming back to practice.
I mean, I think we got to get. I think they got through today okay. I think maybe a little bit of always what you would expect. They missed a bit of time leading into a week off, so there was, I think, a little bit of rhythm and rust and conditioning and things that we'll have to get through here for a couple games or so, I believe. But they look good. They looked healthy and ready to go.
Justin, this is a great sign for the Toronto Raptors if they want to make a push for this play in the playoffs. As of right now, they have the 5th worst, toughest schedule. Toughest schedule the rest of the way. 23 games. The average opponent's winning percentage just over 500. So you're going to need everybody ready to play.
And you still have two games against Boston, 2 games against Milwaukee, 2 games against Denver, who is blowing away with the Western Conference. Still games against Philly, Miami, and Cleveland. Those teams are all ahead of them in the standings. And also, the Raptors have not been playing very well against mediocre teams. So that's a very telling sign, right? A team that is mediocre itself that plays bad against mediocre teams. Again, they're going to need all hands on deck for this final stretch run, like you mentioned, right? But to me, the focus, is on Pascal Siakam. If he is that all-star guy, if he is that number 1 guy with a bullet, he has to take control. This is my team. Basically, get on my back, boys, and I will take you there to wherever he can take them to. That's what I'm looking at.
Well, listen, there's no lack of belief in this Toronto Raptors team, at least from Fred VanVleet, who said he believes that they can make the playoffs.
Absolutely. It's at 4.5 games with 23 left, absolutely. Again, it's not going to be easy. And at this point, we just got to put our heads down and go to work and focus on, one day at a time. So we got a tough team coming in Thursday. and that's our focus, is trying to find a way to be successful against New Orleans.
And he's not talking about the play in there. He's talking about playoff, James. Minus 375 for the Raptors to make the play and minus 220 for them to make the playoffs. If they want to get into that 6th spot, which the Knicks currently occupy, they got to go 17-6 at the current pace.
So they can't be blowing games like tonight against, or tomorrow against the Pelicans, right? Who aren't a great team themselves. I know they smashed the Raptors last time, 126-108. Van Vliet actually got ejected early in the second half of that game, didn't he? So there's issues there. Let me ask you this about Scotty Barnes.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to figure out Scotty Barnes, right? Obviously a young player. He's got a big journey ahead of him. Really good player, assist machine, but he's kind of plateauing right now. When's the breakthrough going to come?
The thing I see with Scotty Barnes is this. He won the Rookie of the Year last year, and I think expectations got extremely elevated on him. And I think people have to temper that because, look, Scotty Barnes is a very good young player, but I don't see him as that generational guy like a Zion Williamson, John Morant, Luka Doncic. So I think you have to be patient because, again, he's a very young player, second year. And in the NBA, especially with big guys, and he's trying to develop his shot, it takes a little bit of time. So be patient, everybody. But you said he's a great facilitator. He's got the physicality. He's got the athleticism. Just give him time. Let him play a little bit more, get more reps, and you'll see him kind of hit his stride in the coming years.
So being unfair is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly, James.
Talk about a young player who's constantly praised by some of the best players in the league. KD loves Scotty Barnes. I think he's got a pretty bright future. The Raptors, they got the Pelicans on Thursday. Then they got a 2-game road trip against the Pistons and the Cavaliers. Then a big one on February 28th against the Chicago Bulls, a team they're going to be battling against to get into this play-in. We're reaching the end of the show. Quickly, I wanted to touch on some Honda Classic. Yeah, what a tournament, Charles.
Honda Civic.
Honda Civic Classic. I'm going to give you a 3-pack of picks. Okay. Billy Horschel, Matt Kuchar, and Johnny Vegas plus 3,400. Give me your picks quickly.
Adam Svensson, Canadian.
Wow.
Finished top 10 last year. Finished top 10 in the Genesis. Adam Svensson.
Sharps, Tiger Woods, what do you think?
Sanjay M. He's a favorite.
Oh, you go with the favorite.
Plus 900. I mean, there's no one in this field.
Yeah, there's nobody.
It's an $8 million tournament, right? There's
Yes.
$25 million tournaments all around it. So who cares? There's value, though, I suppose.
There's value. That's it for the Homestand Show. Tune in tomorrow.